Let's talk about G20 and what's realistic to expect, given where we are, given the issues put on the table. What can be done really between two leaders such as President Xi and President Trump in one face-to-face meeting?
Well, a lot can be done, particularly when you have sustained regular contact, as previous administrations have been done. Because at least my experience is when we dealt with China, if President Xi made a commitment to move on whether it was trade or whether it was on technology or whatever, because they do have such a top-down form of government, things tend to happen. The question is going to be with all of the other related issues that you just referenced, will they be able to focus enough and find commonality on some of these very difficult issues on the trade and economic front?
So, Ron, I'm really curious about this because you must have been in this situation where there is what we used to call in law school a true conflict. It's not a false conflict, it's a true conflict, where President Xi really wants to move forward on technology in a big way, and President Trump really doesn't want him to do it the way he's done with the technology that he's really, to some extent, borrowed, taken from the United States. How do you resolve that when you have two forces that really are up against one another?
Well, the one thing you can do is make a stronger case to China that we can help them get where they want to go, but also piggyback on the reality. China is going to respond most to its own entrepreneurs like Jack Ma and others who have begun to make the case that it's not much of incentive for them to be creators and inventors if China isn't going to respect and protect intellectual property rights. But that would require having a leader that doesn't have a need to frankly come out of every negotiation and say, oh, I won, or I smushed it in their face. We have to help China understand it is in their own naked self-interest to foster and be in a more innovative society, to protect intellectual property rights and respect the development of technology, and that includes their own, and that means they have to extend that same protection and respect to us. But I don't at all quarrel with this administration insisting that China stop attempting to pirate or frankly steal and enforce our important trade secrets, because we have a knowledge-based economy, David, as you know. And if we give up on that, then we're really going to be behind the eight ball.
So, Ron, it's not just the president. Obviously, the president is in charge. Not just the president. We also have Robert Lighthizer, who's a long-term trade negotiator. He's been around these deals before. And he did get the U.S., Mexico, Canadian agreement through, the USMCA through, the NAFTA 2.0 through. Did we learn anything from that that might indicate where we might head with China?
Well, I don't know that we've learned a lot yet. He did get the agreement negotiated, which I applaud him for. But he also had the benefit, David, as you know, we had essentially updated and modernized NAFTA as part of the negotiations around the Trans-Pacific Partnership when we were still a member in that. And so with the exception of the provisions that were made to strengthen labor and wages for auto workers, for the most part, they had a template that they could pick up and move on from. The challenge will be, can we now get that through Congress? And the more troubling part of it, which links back to China, is the provision that at least attempts to tie Canada and Mexico's hands from completing an agreement with China, which obviously is going to bleed over in the current negotiation. So I don't know there's a lot that we can learn from that, because we are such long-term trading partners, strategic partners, and that's a relationship that all three countries desperately needed to get right.
As we look forward to the ratification that's needed for this new agreement with Canada and Mexico, a lot of the complaints we're hearing are actually from the Democrats. You served under a Democratic president, as I say. Do you think that they're mistaken? Should it be ratified, in your opinion?
I would hope that they would ratify it. But as you know, traditionally, trade is a much tougher sell among our Democratic base because of the fact we're so heavily tied to support from working families and labor, which have historically been against trade. But part of the challenge with this administration is this president has so demonized trade. I don't think you can take for granted that you're going to have support from those Republican members as well. And the other complicating factors, we were talking before we started, the president's rhetoric on immigration and building a wall and sealing the borders can't make this an easier sell for the new incoming administration in Mexico.
Well, exactly, Ron. Let's go exactly there, because you were mayor of Dallas before you made your way to Washington. You've experienced the issues surrounding immigration. It's not on the border, but it's down close to the border there. What is a sensible result here, and can it be obtained with this president, with this Congress?
I don't know that it can be obtained under this president, but I'm hopeful that in a new Congress, that nucleus of members of both parties that want a long-term answer to the immigration problem can come together, see if we can't find a solution to both DACA, to immigration, a way to strengthen the border. And I think if they did that and presented it to this president, he does seem to respond favorably to being able to take credit and say, look what I've done. And under that case, maybe he might sign a deal. But that's going to require Congress to come together and see where we can find commonality, and if we can't deliver on the long-term promise of finally having a comprehensive immigration response.
Well, on DACA, on the Dreamers specifically, at one point we thought there was a deal. Certainly the Democrats thought they had a deal, and the president walked back away from it. What is the big sticking point? The Democrats have said they'll spend more money on the wall. Is the main issue path to citizenship, as they say, and I guess they turn that into amnesty? They call that amnesty?
You know, you're trying. I don't mean to be flippant, David, but trying to decipher what the substantive issues are from this president versus what I like to refer to as Twitter rage. It's just beyond my capabilities. Sadly, I think this president realized the anti-immigrant sort of rhetoric that he loves to embrace was a very good political strategy for him. Now, I think it failed him in the midterms. Now, what remains to be seen is now we are past the midterm elections, is whether he will calm down and work with Congress to, in fact, come up with a long-term solution. But there had been, as you noted, traditionally strong support among Democrats and Republicans for a responsible position on DACA, because these are young people that have been in this country for the most part most of their lives. They are contributing to our society. Many of them are fighting in our military. They are paying taxes, and we should find a way to give them a sensible path to citizenship.